What if the life you are trying so hard to fix is not asking to be fixed at all? What if it is asking to be seen differently? Perhaps you have been carrying a quiet exhaustion that no one around you fully understands. You continue with your responsibilities. You answer messages, care for people, make decisions, and try to remain hopeful. Yet beneath the surface, there may be a feeling that something is missing. You may wonder why peace seems so close in certain moments and then disappears as soon as life becomes uncertain again. You may have told yourself that peace will come when the situation changes, when the relationship becomes easier, when someone finally understands you, when your health improves, when the future becomes clear, when you stop making mistakes, when you have enough certainty to relax, and so you wait. You wait for the world to give you permission to feel whole. But perhaps peace was never meant to be delivered to you by the world. Perhaps it has always been something quieter, deeper, and more intimate. Something already present beneath the noise of thought, beneath the old fears, and beneath the identity you have spent years trying to protect. You may have forgotten it, but you have not lost it. There is a difference between the life happening around you and the life happening within you. The outer life is always moving. People arrive and leave. Plans succeed and fail. Bodies change. Seasons pass. Certainty appears for a moment and then gives way to another unknown. If your peace depends entirely on these changing conditions, your inner world will always rise and fall with them. But there is another place within you that does not move in the same way. It is the quiet awareness that notices your thoughts without becoming every thought. It is the space that can observe fear without being only fear. It is the gentle presence that remains when you stop explaining yourself, defending yourself, or trying to become acceptable to everyone around you. You may think of this presence as your true self, your soul, your higher awareness, or the part of you that is connected to the source of all life. The name is less important than the experience. It is felt in moments of silence. It appears when you look at the sky and briefly forget your worries. It is present when you forgive someone and feel a weight leave your body. It speaks through the calm inner knowing that says, you do not have to fight everything. Life often becomes painful not only because of what happens, but because of what the mind says should not be happening. A relationship ends, and the mind says, this was not supposed to happen. Someone disappoints you, and the mind says, they should have known better. You grow older, and the mind says, I should still be who I was. The future becomes uncertain, and the mind says, I cannot be peaceful until I know what comes next. The event may be difficult, but the inner resistance adds another layer of suffering. It is like standing in a river and demanding that the water stop moving. The river does not become still. You simply become exhausted from resisting its nature. Letting the river flow does not mean that you approve of everything that has happened. It does not mean that loss no longer hurts or that harmful behavior becomes acceptable. It means that you stop asking the past to become different. You stop using your energy to argue with a moment that has already passed. And in that release, something begins to soften. Imagine waking in the morning with anxiety already waiting beside you. Before your feet touch the floor, the mind begins reviewing everything that could go wrong. There are conversations to manage, people to please, decisions to make, and outcomes you cannot control. You may believe the anxiety is protecting you by preparing for every possibility. But often, anxiety is the mind trying to control a future that has not arrived. What would happen if, instead of following every fearful thought, you simply noticed it? You might quietly say, fear is here, but fear is not all that I am. You might place your attention on one breath. You might feel the stillness beneath the movement of your mind. The circumstances would not instantly disappear, yet your relationship with them would begin to change. You would no longer be standing inside the storm, believing you are the storm. You would begin to remember that you are also the sky in which the storm appears. The sky does not fight the clouds. It allows them to form, move, and dissolve. The sky remains spacious enough to hold both darkness and light. Perhaps you are more like that sky than you have been taught to believe. You have spent much of your life collecting identities. You learned to be helpful, strong, agreeable, successful, careful, independent, or needed. Some of these identities helped you survive. Some helped you belong, but over time, you may have confused the role you learned to play with the truth of who you are. You are not only the person who made mistakes, you are not only the one who was rejected, abandoned, criticized, or misunderstood. You are not the opinions other people formed about you. You are not even the story you repeat most often in your own mind. You are the awareness capable of seeing the story. And the moment you can see a story, you are no longer completely trapped inside it. This is where change begins. Not by forcing the world to meet every expectation, but by becoming aware of the lens through which you are looking at the world. A fearful lens will find danger everywhere. A resentful lens will keep searching for evidence of betrayal. A loving lens does not deny pain, but it leaves room for healing, compassion, and a deeper understanding. The life before you may remain the same for a while. The same people may be present. The same uncertainty may continue. The same unanswered questions may still exist. Yet when you begin to see through the eyes of awareness rather than the eyes of fear, the meaning of everything starts to shift. And perhaps the question is no longer, how do I make life give me peace? Perhaps the real question is, what must I release so I can recognize the peace that has been within me all along? The part of you that believes peace must come from the outside is often the part shaped by the ego. The ego is not something evil within you. It is simply the identity built from fear, memory, comparison, and the need to feel separate and protected. It learned to survive by watching how others responded to you. It learned which parts of you were accepted and which parts seemed unwelcome. It learned to seek approval, avoid rejection, and hold tightly to anything that created a temporary feeling of safety. The ego speaks in the language of more certainty, more recognition, more control, more proof that you matter. It whispers that you will finally relax when everyone understands you, when no one can disappoint you, and when life unfolds according to your plans. Yet life rarely follows the exact shape the mind creates for it. You may plan a future with someone and discover that their path moves in another direction. You may work hard to maintain harmony and still find yourself misunderstood. You may care deeply for another person and realize that love cannot force them to heal, change, or choose differently. You may do everything you believed was right and still face an outcome you never expected. In these moments, the ego often reacts with resistance. It says, this should not be happening. I must fix it. I must understand it. I must regain control. Control can feel like strength, but it is often fear trying to disguise itself. Perhaps you recognize this in relationships. Someone you care about becomes quiet, distant, or distracted. Before you know what is actually happening, your mind begins creating explanations. You wonder whether you did something wrong. You replay old conversations. You search for hidden meaning in a short message or a different tone of voice. You try to predict what the other person is thinking so you can protect yourself from being hurt. The emotional struggle is not only in what the person did, it is also in the story created around it. The ego dislikes empty spaces. When it does not know, it often fills the silence with fear. It would rather create a painful answer than live peacefully with an unanswered question. Awareness offers another possibility. You can notice the story without immediately believing it. You might say, I am feeling afraid of being rejected. I do not yet know what this silence means. That small pause creates space between what happened and the meaning you gave it. Within that space, you regain your freedom. You may still choose to communicate. You may still ask a question or express how you feel. But now you are responding from clarity rather than reacting from fear. You are no longer trying to control another person's inner world. You are tending to your own. This is one of the quiet gifts of awareness. It does not always change the situation, but it changes the place within you from which you meet the situation. The ego also measures your life through comparison. It looks at another person's relationship, appearance, home, health, confidence, or spiritual journey and quietly asks, why is their life moving forward while mine feels still? Comparison creates the illusion that life is a race with one narrow path. It suggests that there is a correct age to find love, a correct time to discover purpose, a correct way to heal, and a correct schedule for becoming peaceful. But a tree does not compare its season with another tree. One may flower early, another may spend longer growing roots beneath the earth. Neither is failing. Each is responding to its own nature, its own environment, and its own timing. You may be in a season of visible growth, or you may be in a season of inner preparation. You may be letting go of an old identity before the new direction becomes clear. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening. Yet beneath the surface, something essential may be taking root. The ego wants evidence. The soul is willing to trust what cannot yet be seen. When you compare yourself, you leave your own path and enter an imagined version of someone else's life. You see their results, but not their private fears. You see their smile, but not the nights they questioned themselves. You see the surface of their season while living inside the full complexity of your own. Awareness gently brings you back. It asks, what is life teaching me here? What is trying to grow within me now? These questions do not judge your pace. They invite you into relationship with your own experience. Another pattern of the ego is people-pleasing. You may have learned that love is something you earn by being easy to be around, useful, agreeable, or emotionally available at all times. You may say yes when your body's asking for rest. You may silence your truth because you fear creating disappointment. You may become skilled at sensing what everyone else needs while losing contact with what is happening inside you. At first, this may look like kindness, but kindness that continually abandons the self often becomes resentment. You give, but part of you feels unseen. You agree, but your inner world quietly tightens. You remain calm on the outside while anger collects beneath the surface. Then you feel guilty for being angry because you believe a loving person should never feel that way. The deeper issue is not that you cared too much. It is that fear became mixed with your caring. You were not only giving love, you were trying to secure love in return. Real love does not require you to disappear. You can be compassionate without becoming responsible for everyone's feelings. You can listen without carrying another person's pain as your identity. You can say no without becoming unloving. You can allow someone to be disappointed without believing that you have failed them. This may feel uncomfortable at first because the ego confuses approval with safety. When someone is unhappy with you, an old part of you may feel threatened. Awareness helps you remain present with that discomfort. Instead of immediately changing your answer, you can breathe and ask, am I acting from love or am I acting from fear of rejection? The answer may not always be simple, but the question brings you closer to yourself. Fear is one of the ego's strongest voices. It often presents itself as wisdom. It tells you not to trust again because you were once betrayed. It tells you not to begin because you may fail. It tells you to keep your heart guarded because love makes you vulnerable. Fear believes the safest life is one that never opens fully. But a closed heart does not only block pain, it also blocks tenderness, intimacy, wonder, and connection. Imagine a garden protected by walls so high that no storm can enter. The garden may be safe from strong winds, but it may also receive no rain, no birds, and very little light. Protection becomes another kind of prison. You do not need to remove every boundary or trust everyone. Spiritual openness is not the absence of discernment. It is the willingness to remain connected to love without allowing fear to become the ruler of your life. You may have been hurt and still choose not to become hard. You may have been abandoned and still choose not to abandon yourself. You may have been deceived and still choose to live honestly. This is not weakness. It is the quiet strength of remaining aligned with who you are, even when another person acts from their own wounds. The ego also attaches itself to outcomes. It decides how a situation must end before it allows you to feel at peace. You may pray for one specific answer, hope for one particular relationship, or imagine one path as the only path that can bring meaning to your life. There is nothing wrong with having desires. Desire can arise from inspiration. It can guide you toward new experiences and deeper expressions of love. Suffering begins when desire becomes a demand. A desire says, I would welcome this. Attachment says, I cannot be whole without this. When the mind attaches to one outcome, it stops seeing the many ways life may be trying to support you. A closed door becomes proof of failure rather than a redirection. A delay becomes punishment rather than preparation. A loss becomes the end of meaning rather than the beginning of a different understanding. You may remember a time when something you desperately wanted did not happen. In that moment, it felt like life had turned against you. Perhaps much later, you could see what the disappointment protected you from or what new direction it made possible. Not every loss will reveal a clear reason. Some experiences remain mysterious. Yet trust does not require you to understand everything. Trust may simply mean believing that your life is larger than the moment you are currently judging. A river does not know every turn it will take before reaching the ocean. It moves around stones, narrows through difficult passages, and sometimes appears to disappear beneath the earth. Yet its nature is still movement. Its direction is still towards something greater. Your life may be moving even when you feel stuck. The ego sees only the stone. Awareness senses the river. This awareness grows when you stop fighting your thoughts and begin observing them. Many people try to find peace by forcing the mind to become silent. When thoughts continue, they believe they are failing. But awareness is not the absence of thought. It is the recognition that you are more than the thinking mind. You can sit quietly and notice a thought about the past, then another about the future, then a judgment, then a fear. You do not have to chase any of them. You can watch them pass like clouds across an open sky. A thought may say, "I am not enough." Awareness can answer, "A thought of unworthiness is present." A thought may say, "Nothing will change." Awareness can answer, "The mind is afraid of uncertainty." This gentle language does not attack the ego. It creates distance from its conclusions. You begin to understand that thoughts are events within consciousness, not commands you must obey. The more aware you become, the less power unconscious patterns have over you. You begin to notice how quickly you defend yourself when criticized. You notice how your body tightens when someone succeeds in an area where you feel insecure. You notice the urge to explain, prove, impress, or withdraw. Instead of judging these reactions, you become curious about them. Perhaps the need to defend yourself is protecting an old wound. Perhaps the jealousy is revealing a desire you have been afraid to admit. Perhaps the urge to withdraw is asking for rest rather than isolation. Awareness turns inner conflict into inner understanding. And understanding allows compassion to enter. You do not become free by hating the fearful parts of yourself. You become free by bringing light to them. A dark room does not need to be attacked, it needs a lamp. Your awareness is that lamp. As you continue to observe the ego, you may notice that it is always trying to establish who is right and who is wrong. It replays arguments and imagines better responses. It wants the other person to admit what they did. It believes peace will arrive when justice takes the exact form you have imagined. Sometimes accountability is necessary. Sometimes you need to speak clearly, create distance, or protect yourself. But even after wise action has been taken, the mind may continue carrying the conflict. You may win the argument in your imagination 100 times and still feel no peace. This is because peace does not come from defeating another person. It comes from ending the conflict within yourself. You can know that someone's behavior was harmful without allowing their behavior to live endlessly inside your mind. You can honor the truth of what happened without building your identity around the wound. The ego asks, "Who is to blame?" Awareness asks, "What will free my heart?" That question begins to open the doorway toward forgiveness, surrender, and the return to your true self. Because beneath the fear, the comparison, the control, and the stories you have carried, there is still a quiet presence within you that has never been damaged by any passing experience. And when you are ready to meet that presence again, life begins to feel less like a battle you must win and more like a sacred journey inviting you home. Returning to your true self does not mean becoming someone more spiritual, more perfect, or more worthy. It means releasing the layers that have hidden what has always been present within you. You do not have to manufacture peace. You have to stop feeding the thoughts, judgments, and attachments that keep you from feeling it. This is why forgiveness becomes such an important part of the journey. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as saying that what happened was acceptable. It is not. Forgiveness does not erase responsibility. It does not require you to return to a harmful relationship, ignore your pain, or pretend that trust was never broken. Forgiveness is the decision to stop carrying the past as a living wound. You may have held resentment because it seemed like the only way to honor what happened. Perhaps you believed that releasing anger would allow the other person to escape accountability. Yet the person you refuse to forgive may not feel the weight you carry each day. The resentment lives in your mind, your body, and your emotional world. It is like holding a burning piece of coal while waiting for someone else to feel the heat. The hand that suffers first is your own. This does not mean forgiveness happens in one moment. Some wounds need time. Some grief needs to be felt before it can be released. You may forgive in layers. You may feel peaceful one day and angry again the next. Healing is not always a straight path. You can begin gently. You might say, "I am willing to stop allowing this experience to control my present." That willingness is already a doorway. Imagine someone who disappointed you deeply. Perhaps they could not love you in the way you needed. Perhaps they left, betrayed your trust, or remained emotionally unavailable. The ego may continue asking, "Why was I not enough?" But their inability to love well may never have been a measure of your worth. It may have been a reflection of their fear, their wounds, and their level of awareness. This perspective does not excuse their actions. It helps you separate their behavior from your identity. You stop asking another person's limitations to define your value. You may begin to see that many people give only from the level of love they have learned to access. Some are so disconnected from themselves that they cannot meet another person with honesty or tenderness. Their actions may still cause pain, but understanding this can loosen the belief that their choices were proof that something was wrong with you. Forgiveness becomes less about changing your opinion of the past and more about changing your relationship with it. The past may remain part of your story, but it no longer has to become the author of your future. Sometimes the person you most need to forgive is yourself. You may be carrying regret for a decision made years ago. You look back with the awareness you have today and judge the person you were then. You wonder why you stayed, why you left, why you trusted, why you remained silent, or why you did not know better. But you made that decision from the consciousness available to you at the time. You were trying to find love, safety, belonging, or relief. You may have chosen poorly, but you were still moving through life with the understanding you had. A seed does not criticize itself for not already being a tree. It grows through darkness, pressure, and time. It opens when it is ready. Perhaps the version of you who made those mistakes was not your enemy. Perhaps that person was the seed of the awareness you carry now. You can look back and say, I wish I had chosen differently, but I will not continue punishing myself for being human. Self-forgiveness allows regret to become wisdom rather than a prison. As forgiveness loosens the past, surrender begins to loosen your grip on the future. Surrender can sound like giving up, but spiritually it may be one of the deepest forms of trust. It does not mean becoming passive or refusing to make choices. It means acting with love while releasing the demand to control every result. You can plant a seed, water the soil, and give it sunlight, but you cannot pull the plant from the earth before it is ready. Much of your suffering may come from trying to force life to bloom according to your schedule. You want clarity now. You want healing now. You want to know whether the relationship will last, whether the new path will work, or whether the difficult season will end. The mind believes certainty will create peace. Yet sometimes peace arrives when certainty is no longer required. You may not know what comes next, but you can know the energy you wish to bring into this moment. You can choose honesty. You can choose patience. You can choose kindness toward yourself. You can choose not to make fear the leader of your decisions. This is the power of intention. Intention is different from control. Control says, life must unfold this way. Intention says, whatever unfolds, I will meet it from love. You may intend to be peaceful, but that does not mean you will never feel anxious. It means that when anxiety appears, you will not abandon yourself. You will pause, breathe, and remember that the feeling is passing through you. You may intend to live with compassion, but that does not mean you will tolerate every behavior. Compassion may guide you to stay, or it may guide you to leave. It may ask you to forgive silently while maintaining a healthy distance. Love is not always agreement. Sometimes love is a boundary. Sometimes love is telling the truth without cruelty. Sometimes love is releasing someone from the role you needed them to play. When your intention is aligned with love, your choices begin to feel different. They may still be difficult, but they no longer feel like betrayals of yourself. You stop asking, how can I make everyone happy? You begin asking, what choice allows me to remain honest, kind, and inwardly at peace? This is how alignment with the source begins to express itself in daily life. It is not always found in extraordinary spiritual experiences. It may appear in the calm way you answer a difficult person. It may appear in the decision not to repeat an old argument. It may appear when you sit beside someone in pain without trying to fix them. The source can be understood as the loving intelligence from which all life emerges. You may feel it in nature, in silence, in prayer, in music, or in the moment your heart softens without explanation. You do not have to understand it intellectually to live in harmony with it. A wave does not need to understand the ocean in order to belong to it. You are not separate from the life moving through you. The same intelligence that opens a flower, moves the seasons, and heals a wound is present within your being. Your breath arrives without effort. Your heart continues its rhythm while you sleep. Life is supporting you in ways the mind rarely notices. The ego says, I must do everything alone. The deeper self whispers, you are part of something greater. Trust grows when you begin noticing this support. Think of a time when help arrived in a form you did not expect. A conversation came at the right moment. A closed door led you toward a healthier path. A period of loneliness revealed how deeply you had neglected your relationship with yourself. Perhaps these moments were not proof that life would always be easy. Perhaps they were reminders that difficulty and grace can exist together. Trust does not mean believing that nothing painful will happen. It means believing that pain does not have the final word. A winter landscape may appear lifeless, yet beneath the frozen ground, roots are still alive. The tree is not dead. It is conserving energy, waiting for another season. You may be in an inner winter. You may feel uncertain about your purpose. The dreams that once inspired you may no longer feel meaningful. The identity you carried may be falling away before another has formed. The ego sees emptiness and calls it failure. The soul may see sacred space. Not every pause is a problem. Sometimes life becomes quiet because you are being invited to listen more deeply. The old motivations may need to fade so that something more authentic can emerge. Purpose is not always one grand mission waiting to be discovered. It may be the quality of presence you bring to the life already in front of you. Your purpose today may be to listen without judgment. It may be to end a pattern of self-abandonment. It may be to care for your body, forgive someone, or bring peace into a room filled with tension. When you live from your true self, purpose is not only something you do, it is something you radiate. The way you speak, listen, forgive, and respond becomes part of your contribution. You may never see every life touched by your kindness. You may never know how a calm word changed someone's day. A tree does not follow travelers to discover who enjoyed its shade. It simply expresses its nature. In the same way, you do not need constant recognition to live meaningfully. Love is complete in the giving. This becomes especially important as you age. The world may encourage you to fear the passing of time. You may look in the mirror and notice changes that remind you that the body is not permanent. The ego may grieve the image it once carried, yet aging can also be a spiritual invitation. It can help you release the need to prove yourself. It can remind you that the most valuable parts of life were never physical. A face changes, but awareness can deepen. Roles disappear, but love can become more spacious. The body moves through seasons, but the presence within you remains quietly aware. You may begin to see that life is not measured only by how long something lasts. A sunset may last a few minutes and still be complete. A relationship may end and still have carried meaning. A season may pass and still have changed you forever. Impermanence does not remove the beauty of life. It makes you more available to it. When you understand that nothing can be possessed permanently, you begin to hold everything more gently. You appreciate people without trying to own them. You enjoy moments without demanding that they remain. You care for the body without confusing it with your entire identity. This gentle holding is a form of freedom. It allows gratitude to emerge, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is temporary and therefore precious. You notice the warmth of sunlight on the floor. You hear the voice of someone you love. You feel the simple miracle of breathing. These moments may have always been present, but the mind was too busy reaching for another life to receive them. Awareness brings you back to the life that is here. And in this present moment, you may discover that peace is not waiting at the end of your healing journey. It is appearing in every moment you stop resisting yourself. It is present when you forgive one small part of the past. It is present when you release one expectation. It is present when you choose trust for a single breath. You return to your true self gradually through these quiet choices, not by becoming someone new, but by remembering the loving awareness that existed before fear told you who you had to be. And as that remembering deepens, you may begin to understand that life was never asking you to control every wave. It was inviting you to remember that you have always belonged to the ocean. Living this truth does not mean that you will never feel afraid again. It does not mean that every relationship will become easy, every question will be answered, or every loss will make sense. It means that when fear appears, you remember it is not your deepest identity. When uncertainty arrives, you no longer assume that life has abandoned you. When someone disappoints you, you pause before allowing their actions to define your worth. You begin to live from a quieter center. The world may continue changing around you, but you no longer ask every changing circumstance to tell you who you are. You remember that beneath the roles, the memories, the expectations, and the noise of the mind, there is a loving awareness that remains whole. You may forget this many times. That is part of being human. The journey is not about never losing your peace. It is about learning how to return. You can return through stillness. Even a few quiet minutes can remind you that you are more than the stream of thoughts moving through your mind. You might sit beside a window, close your eyes, or simply notice your breathing. There is no need to force silence. Let the thoughts come and go. Listen for the space beneath them. In that space, you may feel the presence that has been waiting patiently beneath all your efforts to improve yourself. You can return through awareness. As you move through your day, notice the moments when your body becomes tense. Notice when you begin comparing, defending, pleasing, or trying to control. Do not judge yourself for these reactions. Simply recognize them. Awareness may sound like, I am trying to control this because I feel afraid. Or, I am seeking approval because part of me does not feel safe. The moment you see a pattern with compassion, it is no longer operating completely in the dark. You have created the possibility of another response. You can return through forgiveness. There may be someone whose memory still disturbs your peace. You do not need to force yourself to feel something you do not yet feel. You can begin with willingness. You might quietly say, I am willing to release the pain I no longer need to carry. You can offer the same kindness to yourself. Forgive the version of you who did not yet understand. Forgive the moments when fear made your choices. Forgive yourself for the years spent searching outside for what was always within. Forgiveness does not change the past. It changes the energy with which you carry it. You can return through gratitude. Gratitude does not ask you to deny difficulty. It simply helps you see that difficulty is not the whole of life. Perhaps there is one person who has shown you kindness. One place where you feel safe, one lesson that emerged from a painful season, one ordinary moment that would have gone unnoticed if you were still rushing toward somewhere else. Gratitude brings your attention back to what is already being given. You can return through trust. Trust may not feel like certainty. It may feel like taking the next gentle step without knowing where the entire path leads. It may mean allowing a door to remain closed without trying to force it open. It may mean believing that a season of waiting is not a season without meaning. The river does not need a map of every turn. It continues moving because movement is its nature. Your deeper nature is also movement toward love, even when fear temporarily pulls you away. When you live with this awareness, relationships begin to change. You listen more deeply because you are no longer preparing a defense. You become more honest because approval is no longer the price of belonging. You can love another person without asking them to complete you. You become less interested in winning every argument and more interested in preserving the peace within your own heart. This does not make you passive. It makes your actions clearer. You can speak firmly without hatred. You can leave without revenge. You can remain without losing yourself. You can allow another person to have their own journey while honoring the direction of yours. You begin to understand that inner peace is not withdrawal from life. It is a new way of participating in life. You still care, you still dream, you still grieve, you still make choices. But you are no longer asking each outcome to confirm that you are worthy. You are learning to live as though your worth was never in question. Perhaps this is what spiritual freedom feels like. Not escaping the human experience, but meeting it without forgetting the divine presence within you. You may look at your life and see unfinished healing, unanswered questions, and circumstances you wish were different, but you may also see something else now. You may see that every experience has invited you to become more aware. Every fear has shown you where love was needed. Every resentment has revealed what you were ready to release. Every ending has asked you to loosen your grip and trust the larger movement of life. Nothing needs to be wasted. Even your confusion can become a doorway. Even your pain can soften your heart. Even the years you believe you lost can become the place where wisdom was quietly forming. And perhaps life changes forever when you stop asking, why is this happening against me? And begin wondering, how is this moment inviting me back to myself? The answer may not arrive as a dramatic revelation. It may come as a softer breath, a judgment released, a boundary spoken with love. A morning when you wake and realize that the past is no longer the first thing on your mind. Peace often returns quietly. It has no need to announce itself because it was never truly absent. It was simply covered by the belief that you had to search somewhere else. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering the awareness beneath the fear, the love beneath the defenses, and the stillness beneath the noise. You are remembering that you belong to life. You are remembering that you have never been separate from the source. And as you carry this remembrance into your ordinary days, may you meet yourself with patience, meet others with compassion, and meet the unknown with a little more trust. If something in this reflection spoke to you, share in the comments what you are ready to see differently or release, and subscribe for more quiet spiritual journeys into awareness, healing, and inner peace. For now, take one slow breath. Let this moment be enough. The peace you have been searching for is not waiting somewhere in the distance. It is already here, quietly waiting for you to remember.